Well, I came up with Shift Alt Golf as I'm staring at my keyboard here. And sometimes you hit Shift Alt and a key and you don't know what's going to come up. And I continue to be amazed at how much is completely out of my control. So I really don't know what's going to happen to a large extent. And I've gotten much better at accepting that, where I'm just going to do my best when I make a golf swing. Where the ball ends up, I don't know. Could we take some of those things to our life and integrate them and understand that it may not go exactly as planned?
Golf Smarter number 808 is brought to you by relieffactor.com/golfsmarter. What the fastest golfer in history can teach us about playing slow golf with Christopher Smith.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Chris.
Thank you, Fred. Pleasure to be here once every 20 years, right? Something like that.
Something like that. You know, I say welcome back, but it has been such a long time since we had you on that I admit that I forgot what a great teacher you are, what an inspirational teacher you are. But luckily, Joe Hallett reminded me that I needed to get you back on the show.
My sister in crime, as I call them sometimes. We look like brothers, but people call us sisters. And one of my dearest friends, colleagues, and just a great coach himself, and super knowledgeable and very humble too. What a deal!
He's a great guy. Well, I love talking to him. He really just gets me fired up every time we speak. There's so many places I want to go in our conversation, but I think that we have to start with speed golf. You are a Guinness Book World Record holder for. Is it the speed of the round, or is it a combination of speed of the round and low score? How do they work that? How did you get that? Tell us the details. I need to know.
Yeah, that seems like where a lot of conversations start with me. I consider myself either the old Tom Morris of speed golf or the speed golf rodeo clown, as I like to call myself now. And it's fun because it's not as big a part of my life as it used to be, Fred, because I played a lot, competed a lot, and I've literally slowed down a little bit the last few years. But it is easy to score. I like simple math. It's like low numbers on a scorecard. So in speed golf, you just add your score to your time. So if you were to go and it took you 60 minutes to play and you shot 80, your total would be 140, and low score wins. Yeah.
Okay. I was with some guys last night. I went to a ball game, and I was telling them that you were going to be on the show, and I was like, okay, you're a runner and you're a golfer. What do you want to know from a guy like this, right? So the first question is your warm up, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about what your warm up is before you go into a round of speed golf. Even though you're not doing it as much anymore, I'm still fascinated by the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a blend. I'm still going to warm up for the golf side of it, and people have different types of warm ups for golf. There'll be some dynamic stretching, and some of those stretches then might be more for the running aspect of it. And usually then there'll be a light jog or run, which some people are like, well, why are you going to run before you go to run? But, warm up of anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes, just super easy to get the system ready. And then combine that either before or after with some golf specific warm up, and then off we go. So it's a bit more than just a traditional golf warm up. To get the running system ready to rock and roll, and basically depending on the golf course, speed golf could be anywhere from 3 to 6 miles, and it's just interval training. So you're hitting a golf shot and running as hard as you can. It's not a flat out sprint anymore for anybody. And then that could be 250 to 300 yards off the tee, stopping. Hitting a golf shot, which is rather important in speed golf, and then doing it all over again. And that could go, depending on the length of the golf course and kind of the The green to tee aspect, 3 to 6 miles.
Hmm. And that's my guess is a 3 mile run is not that much for you.
Not too much, no. It would be now. Like I said, I don't run as much as I used to, but I think it's a lot. There's no question it's a lot harder on the system as well to stop and start. So if people said, "Hey, I'm going to go do a 3 mile run down at the track," and it would be flat, you could get into a consistent kind of rhythm, and it might be a 9-minute mile, might be an 8-minute mile, might be less than that, faster than that. But when you're playing around a speed golf, obviously it's not level. You're hitting and then running and then stopping and then starting. So it's just a lot of stop and start. And so when I was playing competitively a lot, that's how I would train. Yeah, I did a lot of miles, but I also simulated. I'm a big believer in this, even when it comes to golf. And I don't think anybody does enough of it, of what we call context specific practice, where we're really making the practice and the training look a lot more like a round of golf. And so I did that a lot with speed golf. I got a lot of funny looks on the practice tee when I was getting ready for an event. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a golfer who runs or a runner who plays golf?
So I was born and raised in Eugene, Oregon, Tracktown, USA.
Yep.
Moved away from here for a long time, and I've been back here for 3 years. In fact, this has been a great spring, summer with the NCAA's track and field, the Olympic trials a few weeks ago, and then the Prefontaine Classic about 10 days ago. So I kind of had it in my blood, although I really didn't run much as a kid growing up here. Played a lot more golf and then started running later. So I think I would qualify as a golfer that tends to shuffle around the golf course now.
From Tracktown, USA.
Yeah.
Now what's in your bag when you're doing speed golf? What is in your bag? And I don't mean just your clubs. I mean,
Yeah.
like GPS, about hydration, about, snack. I mean, what do you do with
Yeah.
that?
Well, luckily, it's not long enough. We're playing 18 holes, not 72. It's clubs and a couple of golf balls, and it's so funny to think about it over the years. A young woman by the name of Lauren Cupp just broke the world record for women 2 weeks ago, and so there was quite a bit of good media attention brought to that. So I look at the iterations of what people have tried over the years with speed golf. And again, we don't really know how long speed golf goes back, although there's a great clip that came up a few weeks ago also when a journalist from Golf Magazine reached out to me and wanted to know about the history of speed golf. Turns out Lee Trevino, believe it or not, in 1972, when training, that was a phenomenal year that he had. He actually ran around a golf course in Texas when he was training for the Open Championship, which was pretty interesting. And it's actually a quote that comes from him and a video of him. So the more official, I guess, beginnings of speed golf were in the late 70s. And people have tried everything to get back to your question, from playing with one club, Fred, which is a lot faster, but can be problematic when shooting a score. I myself always carried 6 clubs in a little bag, a driver, a fairway wood, a 5-iron, an 8-iron, a gap wedge, and a putter, and I did pretty well with that. In fact, that's what I used when I set the Guinness World Record in Chicago in 2005. And others will play with 4 clubs. I've seen people try to create some sort of quivers, all to be able to still play well and run as fast as possible. Because obviously carrying a little bag has some pretty substantial effects on your running gait to slow you down. And so for people, I think it's so funny because it's been such a big part of my life for, wow, probably 25 years now. But I meet people every day who have never, ever heard of speed golf, which is great. And so I realize it's a bit of a niche sport within a niche sport. And so it's been a big part of my life. And then really more than anything, what it's taught me as far as performance, training, practice, and the bits and pieces I can use of it, Fred, to help non-running golfers, or slow golfers, as I like to call them, traditional golfers, with their golf games. Because I learned so much about myself and being able to play good golf in that format.
My friends accuse me of being a slow golfer, but I know I'm the fastest walker in the group. I'm always taken off because somebody early on in the podcast said, walk fast, swing slow. And I've always taken that to heart. So it's like, yeah, you can accuse me of being a slow golfer, guys, but I'm always at the ball before you and I'm always at the tee box before you. So don't give me that hard time.
Well,
I take a little longer to line up my putt, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Everybody, to each his own. People think, when I play traditional golf, I'm not particularly fast. I like to kind of take my time and do certain things. Mm-hmm. We had a fantastic example. I don't normally watch golf on TV on the weekends because I'm busy coaching and teaching, but I did this Sunday, and I thought it was such a great match between Bryson and Patty Ice, who just acquired that nickname. And Bryson, obviously pretty high wired and plays fast and walks fast now, because that's what he was getting attention for not too long ago. And Patrick Cantlay looked like he was just trying to slow play him to death between the way he walked and his pre-shot routine and reading the putts. And for me, it was really intriguing to watch because it did become a bit of a match play deal. And so what I would encourage everyone to do is find the pace at which you perform best. And that might be walking. It might be the time that you spend over the ball. I think when people see me or they play with me, they think, boy, I'm just going to get over there and hit it. And everybody's a little different. I do think that often if we spend too much time over the ball, as most players know, it's not beneficial. There's too many thoughts, often negative thoughts. So in general, if there's a little bit less time, once you've addressed the golf ball, that tends to work better.
All right, let's take a quick time out. We'll be back because I have so many more questions just about what's in your bag. We'll be right back. This episode of Golf Smarter is brought to you by Relief Factor. As I've shared with you for the past 4 episodes now, I've been taking 100% drug-free Relief Factor for a couple of months now. Once in the morning and once before bedtime. And as much as the world is throwing at us right now, I'm pretty comfortable in saying that I'm feeling good. My mind is sharp and it's great to be alive. Is it all due to the Relief Factor? Of course not, but it sure isn't hurting. I think it's because of the 4 key ingredients that Relief Factor provides. You see, each one works on a different metabolic pathway to help your body heal the inflammation that exacerbates many everyday pains caused by aging, exercise, and just everyday living. If you have everyday aches and pains too, then remember, Relief Factor is 100% drug-free and designed to be taken every day so that you can get out and stay out of pain. So check it out for yourself. Go to relieffactor.com/golfsmarter and order a 3-week quick start. Again, to claim your 3-week quick start for only $19.95, go to relieffactor.com, ReliefFactor, relieffactor.com/golfsmarter. Okay, we know you got 6 clubs in the bag. That's fine. But do you carry a bottle of water? Do you carry Gatorade? Do you carry any kind of hydration?
No, absolutely not. It's not long enough. So if it's at the most, if maybe it's a 10K, which is for those that don't understand the metric system, like everybody in our fine country, that's about 6 miles. But if it's a 5K, that's about 3. It's usually not long enough, Fred, to have any of that. So I'm kind of ready to go. Okay. I have played some death marches over the years where it's been really hot and humid.
Mm.
And I can think of a couple. One years ago, we played in Austria, believe it or not, which you would have thought would have been nice. And it was brutal. People stopping and drinking water. And then there was an event in the Southeast. Oh, I want to say maybe 7, 8 years ago. Same thing. It was awful. It was just so hot and humid that actually did drink some water. But otherwise, it's it's pretty quick. It's not like a half marathon or a marathon where you would need to fuel. So, I have this cool little bag that Sun Mountain made for years, and now there's some offshoots of it. Carry it kind of like a suitcase. Some of them have handles, some of them have pop-up stands. So there's a few different varieties. It's certainly faster to play with one club, but it's tough. I did a lot of training with a 5-iron, and it was great for running. But if I got in a greenside bunker, I could still be there. Might take me a while to get out. So I kind of settled on these 6 clubs, got used to playing with them, how far they went. And kind of stuck with that. Usually had a couple golf balls in there to keep it light. Obviously, with running, you're trying to be as light as possible. Sure. And at the same time, like people ask me, is it golf? Is it running? I still firmly believe it's about 2/3 golf and about 1/3 running. Okay. I've played competitive speed golf with Olympic medalists in 5 and 10K who would dust me no problem on a track. And if they're not good enough golfers, as most of them are not, they end up taking more swings and more time, and they're running zigzags and twice as much as I am when I'm dinking it down the middle of the fairway. So that's a bit about kind of the nature of it and how to get around most effectively.
And as an amateur golfer, one of the things that would definitely be a question at the forefront of my mind is, how many balls do you take with you?
Yeah. I usually have one extra one in my pocket, and then I would carry, golf balls are heavy. I would carry 3 or 4 in the little pouch in the pocket in the bag, and that was it. Heaven forbid you run out of golf balls.
Oh yeah, that would kind of ruin the score.
Yeah, that would be a bummer. That would destroy the day. So that's about it though. And then a pocket full of tees. I would usually pop in 21's a lucky number. I'd stick 21 tees in my pocket. Would not take the time to pull them out of the ground, which is poor etiquette, but that way somebody else could use them. So there were little techniques and tips and strategies to speed golf to pick up the pace. I think it's funny when we started leaving the flagstick in, not only for the recent COVID reasons, but rules wise a couple of years ago.
Rules, yeah, right.
That was something we were pretty used to in speed golf because that's the way we always played it, just to save time. And
sure,
it just became kind of the part of the nature of it.
Okay, shoes. Are you wearing cleats?
No way.
Are you wearing running shoes?
Absolutely, yeah. I kind of opted, again, lightweight. Trail running shoes work great because speed golfer is not going to follow the cart path. Speed golfer is going to go from point A to point B. So that could include running through areas you wouldn't normally run through, jumping over streams, through a few different less than groomed areas. I actually have been working on a pair of prototype speed golf shoes with my pals over at Nike and Nike Golf for some time now. So it's part running shoe, part golf shoe. Okay. I've seen people try to dive into speed golf with old clunky golf shoes and a full set of clubs, and that's torture. They need a cart for sure.
Yeah, why don't you just wear a sweat outfit as well while you're doing it? Sounds horrendous. And how do you, when you're playing speed golf, how do you judge your distance? How do you read the yardage?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. One of my favorite topics, just with all the measuring devices we now use in golf and in coaching, and I'm a big believer in measuring. Although there's some catchy phrases out there that I don't always necessarily agree with, like why guess when you can measure? So my question to all those people talking about that is, how is it that we're still on this planet if we do not know how to measure intuitively and instinctively with the brain, spirit, mind, body system, which is something that happens when you play around a speed golf. And I think people find it quite intriguing. So I think we are measuring at all times throughout the day subconsciously. I know we are. Whether it's the distance from the microphone or me taking a sip of water, that measuring is happening all the time. And by far, and I don't think anybody can argue this, the greatest measuring device still known to man is the human system. And what we've done in golf to a large extent is we've chosen, and it is a choice, we've decided that we're going to turn it off. We're just going to shut it off in place of a laser, in place of something other to help us do this measuring. There are things that we perhaps cannot measure quite as well with the human system. Like there's certain things in 3D motion capture that are pretty cool to see that perhaps we cannot measure. But for the most part, in a round of golf, between the sensory systems and everything else that's going on consciously, subconsciously, and with, again, the human mind body system, we're measuring all the time. And you see that on the greens, you see that from distances. So when it comes to speed golf, after the tee shot, basically I'm getting a notion from I'll use some of the aids out there, whether it's a sprinkler head or 150-yard marker or 100-yard marker. But then I get to use this brilliant piece of technology that I have and everybody else has, which is, the brain and the body, which are connected, to figure out how far I want that next shot to go. And obviously, I'm taking into account all the conditions, uphill, downhill, temperature, wind, and all that's done in just a matter of seconds. And then, and this is one of the advantages, and there are many to playing speed golf, is I then ballpark, and we now know, if we talk to neuroscientists and others, that the human works best in the ballpark realms and domains rather than specifics. So if the golfer thinks they need to know that they're exactly 147 yards from where the hole is, they don't. And it's not going to help them. It's going to force them in many ways to be more perfect, which doesn't help. As opposed to me as a speed golfer, I'm going to ballpark and estimate that I'm about 140 to 145, 145 to 150 yards. That frees me up. It liberates me. And then I can go about performing the task. So those are quick calculations that are made. We do it when we walk, we do it when we drive a car every day. You do it when you get out of bed so you don't bump into the wall as you go in to make your coffee. We are measuring all the time within an incredible system that's designed to measure. Yet we've opted to kind of shut it down and turn something else on that maybe needs plug and play or batteries or a blue lit screen. I think it's fascinating.
Well, it is fascinating, but when you're talking about taking a drink of something, you're talking about measuring a distance that's within inches or feet versus 180 yards. So at that point, what becomes more important to you as the speed golfer? Is it distance or is it accuracy?
Oh, I think for sure on the the longer shots, it's getting about the right distance. But think about it, when we're driving down a freeway at 70 miles an hour, how much measuring's going on? A lot.
Sure.
This car in front of me slowing down, this one's going faster, there's somebody behind me. How far away is the car next to me? Do you think about those things? No. I mean, you have a speedometer and you have a gas pedal and a brake, but that's about it. And so that stuff's going on at high speed. And there's the need to adjust and adapt at all times. So that's built in. We have a lot of these built-in measuring pieces that can be activated. And I think the cool thing with speed golf, Fred, is is you have to activate them when you play speed golf, because you're not going to stop. I'm not going to grab my laser. Most like GPS devices in competitive speed golf events now are outlawed. You can't use them. And again, I think it's interesting if you were to get used to using your eyes and then ballparking the yardage, you could get very good at that. And I'm the living, breathing, poster child for that, with not just the Guinness World Record, but having shot literally hundreds of rounds under par and under an hour, playing with 6 clubs and using, the abilities that I have. And I don't think I'm a supernatural golfer or runner. I just I learned to do it, and it's still a lot of fun. I mean, I'll go out and test myself now. I carry a laser if somebody, in traditional golf. And so I'll get to a shot and I'll look at it and think, okay, that's the pins in the back of the green and it's a little downhill and the wind is such. And I'll guess how far away, an educated guess, the flag stick is, or the hole is. And then I'll just confirm it with the laser, which is quite interesting. So I've learned to use my system and my eyes, as opposed to the younger generation, which I think is quite comical, because I have a lot of junior students who are fantastic players, but if we're 100 yards away and I ask them how far away we are and I don't let them use the laser, they're awful. I mean, it's comical how far away, let's say, well, we're 200 yards away or we're 30 yards away. Really? Because they've become dependent, and that's what's a little scary, kind of like spell check or other things. They've become dependent on the measuring devices to be able to play.
And we're not going back in the other direction, buddy. I hate to break it to you. All right, we're going to take one more time out, and I'm going to let you finish that thought. I could see you have something to comment about that, but we'll do that after this. Yeah, well, we can debate this measuring thing forever, because somebody you've been playing golf probably most of your life. There's some of us who started late in life. I was in my 40s when I started playing golf, and I do depend on what just get me to the center of the green type of read. Because if it's 125 to the center of the green, but it's 135 to the pin, or it's 108 to the front of the green, my skill level, my friend's skill level, we're not that accurate. Although we want to know exact numbers. It's like, you're off by 2 yards. It's like, so what? Can you hit that?
Right? Yeah, you're not good enough. It doesn't matter. I hate to tell people that, but
yeah, it doesn't matter. But it's going to be, it's difficult to gauge it when you're not used to, or you have no experience of 100 yards. You really got to know. It's really an experiential thing. It's not just, I don't think it's, even with the caveman, right, hunting, I don't think it's intuitive. I think it's something that it's a skill. It's a skill, right?
No question.
And it takes practice.
It does. And we, back to, in my humble opinion, why we're still here is if we go back to the some of the original humans, the cave people. So when cavemen went out every day, and I borrowed or begged or stole this from the one and only Jackie Burke Jr., who I've been able to spend some time with over the past 5-6 years. But when cavemen walked out of the cave every day to hunt with his stones and his spears, the saber-toothed tiger wasn't sitting exactly at 50 yards, not moving, right? He had to hunt, and he was able to aim. He was able to align. He was able to throw, and throwing and swinging a golf club have a lot of similarities. And really what he needed to do was adjust and adapt to the situation. And so I'm a firm believer that we all have these innate hardwired ability to, for example, to aim. I see a lot of awful aimers in golf, and those are the ones that show up on my lesson team. Before they even hit a ball, they put an alignment rod down. I know right away this person has alignment issues. And there's some very simple ways to help them with that. and most of it is using the eyes and walking into the ball a certain way with their eyes on the target, just like caveman used to do to save the family in his life. So I don't think we're getting away from the measuring piece. Back to the battle royale that happened at Caves Valley on Sunday, I thought it was fascinating to watch the two when it comes to green reading. So obviously Bryson and his caddy use a lot of aim point or a version of aim point. They all have green reading books now, which I think is a bit of a cop out. Cantlay did not. And obviously he putted phenomenal. And he's not going to putt like that week in and week out. So he was using some different techniques and different tools, and was very successful with it. So the point being there, like you just mentioned, and this is what I would preach to everyone, and we get into trouble with methods and everything that's being pushed out there with everywhere to all the golfers, is my job as a guide and a teacher and a coach, to get away from the speed golf for a minute, is to find for the best way for you to play golf, Fred, and everybody else to play golf, hold the club, swing the club, rather than putting out information that really is not relevant or pertinent to each individual. Again, to borrow a phrase from a biomechanist overseas, I think everybody's a case study of one. Yet we put this block of information out saying, well, everybody needs to do this, or everybody needs to believe in that. Everybody needs to eat this. Everybody needs to swing this way. And that's a disservice to the human being and to the golfer. So again, when we look at the best in the world, just how they play, how they swing, their demeanors, their pace, everything, it's all quite different. Fascinating.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to go back to your caveman and saber-tooth tiger. Dude, I have a feeling a saber-tooth won a bunch of those matches, right? I don't think that the caveman really dominated it. It's like if he misses, he's in trouble.
He didn't dominate it. And thankfully, the women there were there to gather
the hunter-gatherers,
the tubers, and the mushrooms, and the berries, because caveman often came back empty-handed, or he didn't come back at all.
Right.
So it was not always a win-win deal. Sometimes the tides turn. So, but I do think caveman was an incredible athlete. I think he used the innate abilities that he had to survive. In golf, sometimes, I still play competitive events. It's survival sometimes, and in golf, it's getting the ball in the hole as soon as possible. And some days are easier than others, and some days, you are being chased by the saber-tooth tiger, and you're just trying to get it in there however you can. And I think that's one of the biggest goals we all have as golfers is just to learn to adjust, acknowledge, and say, hey, this is what's going on today. This is what I need to do today to be successful. And that's challenging. Caveman was designed to improvise. Most of my students come to me and all they want to do is be more consistent. I don't think we're designed to be consistent. We're designed, I can help you get better. I don't like the word consistency. I want better. I want you to get better, and I want you to improvise, and I want you to adjust and adapt. That's what great players do.
That's awesome. That's really spectacular. I think that's why I've given up red meat and white meat, so I don't do it. So I can just, just a lot easier to pick it up out of the ground than to go fight for it. I want to get into your teaching, but what I haven't asked is, what is your Guinness record?
Oh yeah. So in 2005, we had an annual event at Jackson Park Golf Course in Chicago, Illinois. And one day, things fell together for me. I shot 65, which was 5 under par. It was a par 70 golf course, and I ran in 44 minutes and 6 seconds. And that still stands as the Guinness World Record. Again, Lauren Cupp, who lives in New York State, ran 50 minutes, 5-0, and I believe she shot 72. I might be mistaken there. I'm sorry, Lauren. And so she broke the world record just a couple weeks ago, as we're the last day of August for women. And yeah, so it's still out there for somebody to take down. There's been some attempts, and I'm sure it'll go down sooner rather than later, just like we've seen a lot of the world records go down in the in track and field, for example.
Yeah, right.
You
I mean,
know,
are you surprised that you've had the record this long?
Oh, I suppose, but there's there's not masses of people playing speed golf or competing in speed golf. And then also the Guinness Book of World Records is tricky. I mean, you've got to sequester them. You've got to pay them in advance to come and to watch the event. It's not, you can't just do it and say, hey, it's a Guinness World Record of, I ate 59 hot dogs in a minute. So that adds even a little bit more pressure when they're there and you only got one try. So things happen to go well. I played well, and it worked that day. So I think we're seeing this more and more now at the highest level of golf, as well as people are shooting in the 50s all the time now. 59 used to be a revered number. When Guy Berger first did it on the PGA Tour, I believe in 77, late 70s. He was the one and only, and now it seems like every week Bryson almost, he missed a 6-footer on, I think it was Friday or Saturday, just last week. And I see younger people, college players, just in my area in the last couple of months, people shooting in the 50s. It's between the equipment and the fact that people now believe that they can do it, kind of like the 4-minute mile or summiting Everest. Belief is very powerful. And if you have the physical tools and the equipment and the belief, that's a good cocktail.
All right, I want to get into shift alt golf. I want to get into the mental part of your teachings, and we're going to do that after this. Chris, one of the things I'm really curious about is if you're giving a lesson, what kind of the amateur golfer, the average amateur golfer, what can they learn from a lesson of speed golf?
Oh, yeah.
What is a great takeaway from that?
Yeah, it's funny. I've had people show up, for the first time, and they think I'm probably going to take them out on a round of speed golf. And that probably scares them off in the first place. But, there's just so many things that I've learned kind of like it's kind of like the accidental tourist, the accidental speed golfer. I started doing speed golf, almost 25 years ago. And the first few times I played it baffled me because it was against all my beliefs as far as what you needed to do to play well. And so I'm very good at this aspect of my life, is when I don't understand something, I go to people that are experts, real experts, not the ones, as I like to call, the self-anointed gurus or the self-appointed experts. As I always ask people, consider the source. What is this person's background? So I went to people involved in motor learning, which is what your golf swing is, or motor tasks, neuroscience, and then human performance. And these were people that were somewhat in my Rolodex and have become mentors to me and friends. And I said, hey, I'm doing this thing and I don't understand why it works. Why does it work so well? It's against all my beliefs and it's contrarian. There's no pre-shot routine, and I don't do a practice swing, and I don't have exact yardage, and blah, blah, blah. And it turned out a lot of the thing, other than just the physicality of speed golf, it's a much easier way to play golf as we are as human beings. So, kind of from tee to green, I would say one thing that would help most people, although it's changed a bit where we have to hit it far, but, keeping the ball in play. Like I see high handicap golfers and they're awful off the tee. And even, mid-index players, they lose a lot of shots off the tee. And so for me, that's first and foremost, they do that because their golf swing technique is not very good, or if I can be blunt, it sucks. So that needs to get better. In the meantime, don't hit driver off the tee. Just keep the ball in play. Working towards the hole rather than trying to be too perfect. Take a club that's going to get you close to the green. I love what you said about most players, even the best in the world, they're going for the center of the green, especially when they are far away and much closer than what you might think. Up and around the green, one of the things that people ask me, like you just did, how many clubs do you play with? So for years, every speed golf round I've ever played, I played with a gap wedge. This is about a 53-degree wedge. I got really good with that wedge. Really good with it. I could hit different shots. I could hit it high. I could hit it medium. I could hit it low. And as I jokingly say, other than tour players, most people that carry 4 wedges aren't very good with any one of them. They just buy another wedge because they're so lousy. So that has helped. And then when it comes to putting, we all know this, and this is a neuroscience fact, that the brain is bringing in about 10 to 11 million bits of information per second through all the senses. That is a lot of information per second. So then we stand there and we take, 5 to 10 minutes to read the green. You want to talk about, the epitome of info overload, and then we can't make a decision. So people ask me, will you just run up to the green and putt? I say, absolutely not. I already have a lot of information when I'm approaching the green, just as somebody walking would. I can see the green from, when I'm 100 or 50 yards out or right next to it. I get to it. I can see the green. I can feel it under my feet. I think it's so funny. Aim Point, which is I don't know if you've had Mark Sweeney and Joe Hallett's a great aim point instructor. But if you ask those guys, what is it all about? They're basically reading the green with their feet. Right. So that old Tom Morris knew how to read greens with his feet. So again, that's very instinctive. It's very intuitive. Those are all things that happened due to the nature of speed golf that I can help somebody with in a traditional, let's say, golf lesson. And so they've helped me be a better player, and they helped me really be a better teacher. One of the things that makes speed golf a lot easier, you just said it during the break, is the next shot in golf is really hard. And when it's really, really hard? After you hit a really crappy one. So if we hit a poor shot in a traditional round of golf, usually we have anywhere from 5 to 10 to, heaven forbid, 12 to 15 minutes to stew over it before we get a chance to hit the next one. And the beauty of speed golf is if you hit a bad shot, you are literally only seconds away from hitting the next one. So you have to leave it be, and get on to the process and the next shot at hand. That's one of the big advantages to it. And I can help people with that process in a traditional round where, okay, you hit a poor shot. What are you going to do about it now? So what, now what, as I like to say, you can't go back. Okay, so you could make a rehearsal swing before you put your club back in your bag and then start moving forward. It's a matter of leaving it there and learning from it and then looking forward to the next.
We have a mantra here on Golf Smarter that really has been fed back to me by the listeners, and something I learned from a listener, which is never follow a bad shot with a stupid shot.
I love it. Yeah, that's great.
And it's really a tremendous value when you're out there. It's like, okay, yeah, I can see the flag, but there's a forest in front of me and there's no reason I should try to go through this, or, you can think of any kind of situation, but, following, you have a bad shot, you don't have to do this. You're not a hero. Well,
and there's another instance where, and I wanted to add this, where when we watch the best players in the world on TV, it's a different universe, and people's expectations get really skewed. So a great player will hit a bad shot and they will hit what looks like a stupid shot, but they're really good. And
it's not a stupid shot for them because not a stupid shot for them because they practice it, right? We see shots on TV. It's like, oh, I saw it on TV. I can do it, but I've never tried it before.
Yeah. It's a skill level thing. And, sometimes they don't pull it off and they'll make triple or whatever. But to your point, the average player is going to hit a bad shot, then hit a stupid one. And again, I just, where our expectations get get altered and skewed is when we watch golf on TV. So not only are they the best players in the world that are playing on TV, they're playing really well that week, and especially the ones on Sunday. So then the average golfer goes out the next week thinking that that is the norm, that is the average. That is not the average. That is an exception. So number of putts made, whatever it may be. And so I think sometimes we need to, I need to bring people back to reality as a teacher and a coach, and just say, hey, why don't you go to pgatour.com and look at the statistics. So look at the data, look at the numbers of a certain shot, a certain distance, and look at what the average is. Now, these are still the best players in the world, but this is the average, right? And they look at it and they'll think, wow, that's not as good as I thought it would be. And so high expectations, and I just try to eliminate them altogether. Expectations are not beneficial. I like intention, I like belief, and I like want. But people need to leave their expectations at the door. And that's important. And when you watch the best in the world, you realize that. But they do skew our reality a bit, of what the norm is or what the average is. Just one example, because this is one that pops into my head, is I see people on the putting green and they'll miss a 8 to 10 footer and they'll say, oh, I should. One of my least favorite words. And I often tell people not to stop shooting on themselves. So PGA Tour average, absolutely. And this is, again, much of what I will share with your listeners and you here. This is not the Christopher Smith golf opinion method. It's science, it's stats, it's physics. So PGA Tour average from 8 feet is 50%, 50. That's what they make from 8 feet. But I got 39 index people thinking they ought to make everything from 10 to 15 feet. And they're shocked and disappointed and frustrated when they don't. And I love the positivity where they're like, I'm going to make this putt. Great. But when it doesn't go in and it brings them down and it sends them the other way, then you need to, hold on a second. Let me bring you back to reality. You got the best in the world that make 1 out of 2 from 8 feet. So sometimes those are things that I need to do to help people so they're not so hard on themselves, Fred, because we are awfully hard on ourselves as golfers.
Yes, we are. We're gonna have one more segment. This is just too much fun for me. I'm learning way too much. So we're gonna do one more segment. Hopefully you have the time, but we'll do it after this. This week on Golf Smarter Mulligans, episode 124, is the first of 2 with one of the greatest mental game gurus the game has ever introduced, our old friend Dr. Joe Parent. In this episode from 2010, Dr. Joe introduces us to his book, The Art of the Mental Game.
Traditionally, we say making a putt is the ball going in the hole. I call that holing the putt. Making the putt is executing the putt you intended. Sweet spot strike off the putter, going in the direction you intended, at the pace you intended. And we usually know that after it's rolled a foot or two. We go, yep, that's the putt I wanted to hit. Now, then we get to observe it. If it goes in or comes very, very close, okay, hey, we made the putt and we did the best that we could. And we would probably hit the same putt again because all those blades of grass between our ball and our hole sometimes divert the putt. And if you roll the same putt, the next one might go in.
That's Dr. Joseph Parent, author, motivational speaker, and golf's mental game instructor extraordinaire, introducing us to a book that continues to have value today, The Art of the Mental Game. Now, next time, Dr. Joe returns for part 2 to answer listener questions in an episode that's never been public before, as it was for members only. But that's next week. This week, episode 124 of Golf Smarter Mulligans being released this Friday. Both Golf Smarter and Golf Smarter Mulligans are available from where you're listening to this podcast right now. Please subscribe and follow both so that you can get the brand new episode of either and download it or stream it to your favorite listening device. Chris, on your website, you have this thing, Shift Alt Golf.
Yeah.
I just think that's a phenomenal concept. Why don't you flesh it out for me?
Well, I came up with Shift Alt Golf just as a, obviously we all, as I'm staring at my keyboard here, and sometimes you hit Shift Alt and a key and you don't know what's going to come up. And I think that would be part of it is I'm close to year number 50 now playing golf myself, not just fast golf, but slow golf. That I played yesterday, as a matter of fact, just for fun, a little bit of therapy, which I think golf is for many people.
Mm-hmm.
And I continue to be amazed at how much is, and I'm still a pretty good player. How much is completely out of my control. So I really don't know what's going to happen to a large extent, and I've gotten much better at accepting that. First and foremost, where I'm just going to do my best when I, make a golf swing. Where the ball ends up, I don't know. And we've seen that, yeah, unfortunately, with this example of chaos theory with the COVID, where things were, pretty hunky dory, and then the world is thrown into a real tizzy, if you will. So I think there's a lot that we can learn from what happens, when we're playing in a round of golf, that we can take, to the other aspects of our life. I think we forget how lucky we are to be out playing golf in the first place. When wow, I mean, I look at just today with what's happened overseas and what's happened in Louisiana, and I think my level of listening to people complain about things at the golf course it's higher or lower right now. But just to put things in perspective, take a step back, see if some of the things that are happening in a round of golf, and when we play golf, could we take some of those things to our life, and integrate them, and understand that it may not go exactly as planned.
Listen, you can debate all you want on whether golf is a sport or not, but let's never forget that it's a game. It's just supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be fun. But we are inundated with information now. And I was playing with somebody recently. I played with this guy. He's a beginner golfer, but he's a friend of mine. So I go out with him. We play 9 holes. And I asked him, I knew that he started taking lessons early on. And then he stopped.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of flaws going on. I mean, he sees me hits a ball and he goes, "How do you do that?" I was like, "I practice." But I asked him if he's continuing to get feedback. Is he continuing to take lessons? And he said, "No." I said, "Well, then how are you aware of the mistakes that you're making?" And he said, "YouTube." I'm like, "Well, wait. YouTube is telling you how to do things, but is it telling you what you're doing wrong?" Right? And it's a classic example to me of what you mentioned earlier, information overload, of getting all this information and thinking that we can absorb it and take it with us to the next tee box.
Yeah, and a lot of it's irrelevant information. That's the point. So whether it's Instagram or YouTube or whomever, is it relevant to you or I? Probably not. Why are people digesting this information? Because it's free, largely. So then my question to that is, what is the perceived relevance and value of free? So in most parts of the world, it's not very good. Okay, so it's free information, or somebody's trying to sell you something that really may have nothing to do with you. So to your point, I thought this was fascinating. I brought this up to a couple students. So I went to the Prefontaine Classic, which is the biggest track meet in the United States every year. And it was 2 weeks after the Olympics. It was 2 weeks ago, down the street from my house. These are the best athletes in the world. So the throwers, so we're talking javelin, shot put, discus, and then the jumpers, long jump, triple jump, and then the vaulters, all of their coaches are in the stands. So what would happen, and I've seen this year after year, is somebody would make a throw or a jump. The first thing they would do is look at their coach, more often than not, they would run over to the stands, the grandstand, and they would get feedback immediately from the coach. These are the best athletes in the world, the best track and field athletes in the world. Why don't golfers do that? And so I ask myself that question every day. Is it they think that the YouTube and the Insta pieces can help them? Possibly. They don't want to pay? Possibly. Maybe they have gotten what I call fraudulent instruction, of which I'm sure I've been guilty of a lot of. They got poor instruction. So they invested in private lessons and they did not get better for whatever reason. That could have been poor coaching. It could have been, to your point, lack of practice or lack of proper practice, which is a big piece of what I help people with. Not just so much what to practice, but how to practice. It's a big part of my Train to Trust program, which is basically, is your practice geared towards the learning, a sort of learning that will last and endure and transfer to the golf course, or not? And a lot of people practice in a very inefficient way so that when they get to the golf course, they aren't better, right? And so that's just not only just how to swing a golf club, but how to practice. And so I think these are all parts of why did people abandon this idea of, I need immediate personalized feedback. I would say, hey, Fred, here's what you did. Okay. And here's what you need to do instead. And here's what you can do. So again, let me bounce back to the PGA Tour for a minute. Those are awful models for most people. Okay. Because the average human being cannot move like a PGA Tour player. They do not have the strength and the flexibility and the mobility and the range of motion of the people playing on the PGA Tour. So don't try to swing like them. So first things first for me, if you come to me, I'm going to do a physical screen or assessment on you. Hey, what can you do, Fred? How can you swing? Do you have limitations? Of course you do. Can you improve those limitations? Maybe, maybe not. Fine, then let's find a way for you to swing where you can hit it best or putt best or play best. So it becomes very individualized, very personal. And I think it's a great point. We've gone away from that. I understand why. I don't necessarily agree with it. And the bottom line is this: are people getting better ingesting and digesting all this information and trying all these different things, or are they not getting better and getting incredibly confused? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not going to even try to answer that one. It's too hard. You mentioned that's right down the street from you. Tell people how to find you. Let's figure out where we can get lessons from you. And do you provide online lessons for people who want to reach out to you from different parts of the country?
I do. So the easiest place to find me, at least in the ether world, is ChristopherSmithGolf.com. That is my website, which is being revamped. It'll be fancier and I think better shortly. But in the meantime, it is there for you. I am the director of instruction at Eugene Country Club in Eugene, Oregon. I would be happy to see anyone here. I also am the director of instruction in Cabo San Lucas, part-time in the winter. So I am at Puerto Los Cabos, which is on the northeastern part of the Baja Peninsula. And I am back and forth there all winter. Fantastic weather, fantastic golf, wonderful people. I started going last winter. And then, yes, I do a fair amount of remote coaching, Fred. And that's, and I've done that for years, but it's been more and more prevalent with since the pandemic. And so these are programs where I have face-to-face conversations with people all over the world on a regular basis. I also, it allows me to view their golf swings on a regular basis for feedback. I would say that's one of the biggest reasons people do not get better at golf: lack of accurate feedback. And those are monthly programs. It's great for me to be able to see people in person from time to time, but the remote programs are great. I have a few spots left because I try to keep it to a minimum so I can offer what I can to the students that I have. So again, yeah, ChristopherSmith golf.com is a good place to find me. And I'd be happy just to, again, help people as I can. Sometimes there's individuals that I know. I got a big Rolodex. So if you're in a different part of the country and you say, hey, I really want to go see someone here, I'd love to see you, but it's not possible. I'd rather have someone here than I can refer your listeners to credible, competent, experienced coaches that I think would help them play better golf, which is, I think, what most people want to do.
Well, it's been way too long since you were on last time, and it will not be another 12 years before you come back, or 13, whatever it is, before we have you get, because you're a wealth of information. All right, we got past the speed golf stuff. Now we can talk about game improvement, which is the focus, always the focus, game improvement, both on the physical and on the mental and emotional side. Chris, it was great to talk to you again. Thanks so much for spending time with us.
Fred, thank you for reaching out. When we'll speak again soon. Really appreciate it.
How can a conversation like that not help, right? Yes, Golf Smarter is guilty of providing information overload, especially for me. But lately I've been using this data, in air quotes, to clear my mind of the clutter and isolate only the parts that are relevant to me and my game. Also, in regards to information overload, I really think that sometimes an audio podcast can be much more valuable than YouTube videos in that it allows you to use your imagination to relate the instruction to your issues, as opposed to watching someone else, especially a teacher who doesn't swing or think like you, and then for you to repeat what worked for him or her, but not necessarily for you. Hopefully what we provide here is helpful. And based on the inspiring emails that I get on a regular basis, I get a pretty good sense that it's working. Like this one from this 65-year-old recent retiree who resumed playing golf after almost a 20-year layoff. We've had a long exchange over the last couple of weeks about Tony Manzoni and Carrie Mumford. I'm not going into the details of what he had to say, and actually, per his request, to keep the golf gods at bay, he didn't want me to share his name or location. But he did conclude his first note with, I'm not looking for anything in return for reporting how your podcast saved my golf game. But I did want you to know how grateful I am to you and Golf Smarter for bringing these wonderful, transformational techniques to my attention. Without you, I don't know if I would have continued playing. Thanks, Mr. No Name. Golf Smarter is your podcast for caddy. And like caddies, we graciously accept tips for services provided. Thanks, Rich. That was incredibly generous. The tip jar is now open. Just click on donate at golfsmarter.com.